Kyron Horman, a 7-year-old boy from Portland, Oregon, who on June 4, 2010, was dropped off at Skyline Elementary School, the school in which he attended, to go to the science fair. But that night, he never made it home. This is Night Owl. Welcome back. Today we'll be talking about the disappearance of a 7-year-old boy named Kyron Horman, born on the 9th of September, 2002 to an Intel engineer named Kane Horman and his wife Desiree Young. But because not every marriage ends in wedded bliss, they ended up divorcing about 8 months into her pregnancy. They ended up having joint custody, so they both split their time with their new bundle of joy. And everything was going pretty well during this time. That was until 2004. Desiree started having some big-time issues with her kidneys. They were, in fact, failing. So, as you can well imagine, that meant a lot of hospital visits, which resulted in Kane getting full custody of their son. But in spite of all her medical problems, Desiree still played a big part in her son's life. In 2001, while Kane and Desiree was in the middle of their divorce, Kane became involved with a substitute teacher from Roseburg named Terry Moulton. And in 2007, they were married in Hawaii. In December 2008, they received their own little blessing, a daughter they named Kiera. By this time, Kyron had already become a student at Skyline Elementary School. On the morning of June 4, 2010, Kyron was dropped off at school by his stepmom Terry. She decided to hang out with him at the science fair, which was pretty much the biggest event for the school year. She claims that the last time she seen her stepson was at about 8:45. They said their goodbyes, and he headed off to his first class. But the problem is, he never made it to his first class. In fact, he was marked absent for the entire day. At around 3:30, Kane and Terry, with their daughter in tow, strolled down to Kyron's bus stop to greet him after school. But he wasn't on the bus. The bus driver said that Kyron wasn't on the bus, and that it might be a good idea to call the school to see what's up. And that is exactly what they did. They chatted with the secretary, who told them that no one had seen hide or hair of Kyron since the science fair, and that he had been marked absent for the whole day. It's at this point the secretary called 911 because Kyron was no longer absent. He was missing. Of course, the first person the police wanted to talk to was Terry. I mean, she was the last one to see Kyron, so talking to her made sense. And they naturally wanted to know what she was up to from 8:45 on. She said she had tons of errands to run. She had to go to a couple of grocery stores, drive around town because I guess her daughter had an earache, and she thought the motion of the car would calm it right down. Then she made a bit of a pit stop at the gym to work out until about 12:40. Then, at about 1:21, she finally got home. She quickly posted the pictures of Kyron at the science fair on her Facebook account. As you can well imagine, the police performed a pretty extensive search for Kyron. Their search was focused on a 2-mile or 3.2-kilometer radius around the school. But in their search for Kyron, they also included the search of a place called Sauvie Island, which was about 6 miles or 9.7 kilometers away. They were not too forthcoming with the reason why they included this area. But they did. Now, during this time, Kyron's family was pretty much on radio silence when it came to the media. But on June 9, 2010, the family released a statement. I quote, "Kyron's family would like to thank people for support and interest in finding their son. The outpouring of support and continued effort strengthens their hope. We need for folks to continue to assist us in our goal. Please search your properties, cars, outbuildings, sheds, etc. Also check with neighbors and friends who may be on vacation or may need an assistance in searching. There are a lot of resources here to help you search, so please don't stop. It is obviously a difficult time, and they want to speak to the public, so you can hear it from Kyron's family as they come together to share their message. Their objective is to keep the focus on Kyron and not about anything else." By June 12, about 300 trained rescuers had joined the search along with well over 1,300 other searchers from all over. They had people from Oregon, Washington, and California joining the search, all in hopes of bringing young Kyron home. In June of 2010, in the middle of the search for his son, the cops went to have a little bit of a chat with Kane. They kinda had some bad news about his loving wife, Terry. It seems that back in January of that year, Terry had tried to hire a hitman to unalive Kane. The dude's name was Rodolfo Sanchez, a landscaper that worked for them. He claimed that she offered him a lot of coin to do the job. I mean the unaliving her husband thing, not the landscaping thing. But instead of taking the money, he went off and told the cops. Terry, of course, denied it. The police even got Rodolfo all wired up in hopes of getting her to admit it on tape. But unfortunately, they didn't have any luck. But at any rate, Kane decided it would be pretty smart to divorce Terry. Yeah, no kidding. I mean, if you ever needed a reason to divorce, then your spouse trying to hire a hitman to unalive you is probably one of the best reasons you could have. It's a pretty solid indication that your bloody honeymoon is over, isn't it? Around this time, Terry was given 3 polygraph tests about Kyron's disappearance. The first 2 she failed, and the third, well, that one she stormed out of the room midway through it in frustration. And of course, as in most cases like this, the police got tons and tons of tips. One such tip came from a couple of witnesses that claimed they saw an unknown person sitting in Terry's pickup truck in front of the school on the same day that Kyron went missing. Now, if true, that might give Terry an additional problem, because she never mentioned another person being present. A former Multnomah County sheriff named Bruce McCain had told reporters that, and I quote, "The identity of that second person, if he or she existed, could be critical in determining what happened to Kyron after 9 a.m. on June 4th. Yeah, no kidding. But this tip did inspire a Multnomah grand jury to subpoena a lot of Terry's friends, including one named Dee Dee Spiker, someone that, according to Desiree and Kane, was giving Terry a lot of piss-poor advice on how to handle Kyron, most of which wasn't exactly in the kid's best interest. When questioned on her whereabouts at the time Kyron went missing, she said she was doing some gardening for a friend for about 3 hours. But there was a bit of a problem with that. She was there alone, so there was no one to corroborate her story. But initially anyway, she was very cooperative with the police. She gave the cops access to her home, her car. She even put up with a 3-hour interview session with the cops. And yes, they did uncover a few things, such as it was Dee Dee that got Terry a burner phone just after Kane left Terry. And when questioned by reporters, Dee Dee had said, and I quote again, "There's this horror that my friend is going through. If I thought for a second that she was capable of foul play, I would not have been there. She would not have been my friend in the first place." However, when it comes to her cooperation, eventually, it would come to an end. Like when she was in front of the grand jury, for example, a time when you really want someone to be forthcoming with answers to questions asked. Well, she kept pleading the fifth when it came to any questions about whether or not she or Terry had anything to do with Kyron's disappearance. Geez, that's such a cop-out. Of course, she wasn't the only one that had to do the whole grand jury thing. So did Kane and Desiree, as well as the principal of the school. But unlike Dee Dee, they didn't plead the fifth. They answered all the questions asked of them to the best of their ability. But in the end, they didn't have enough for any indictments. However, the court of public opinion is quite a different thing. Most people believe that Terry and Dee Dee kidnapped and unalived young Kyron. In fact, Desiree was so convinced of it that she even filed a lawsuit against Terry claiming that she was responsible for what happened to Kyron. The suit was for $10 million. But she ended up dropping it because she became concerned that it may actually interfere with the investigation. And I can definitely see her point. What do I think happened? You want to know something? When I started this channel, I promised myself that I would not point the finger at anyone unless there was solid fact to back it up. You know, like a conviction. So, remember, this is just my opinion. Do I think Terry and Dee Dee are responsible? Probably. And here's why. The first thing that gave me a red flag was what Terry had said, that the last time she had seen her stepson was at 8:45 as he walked down the hallway to his first class. A trip that should have taken him, 2 minutes? But he never made it to class. Which means, if you believe Terry's story, someone would have had to be in the school, grab him so quick that the young man didn't even have a chance to cry out, and be gone. Is it impossible? No, I guess not. It's just improbable. The next issue is that both Terry and Dee Dee had more than a 3-hour window of opportunity. I mean, sure they had alibis, but from what I understand, their alibis were not backed up by any evidence. And of course, there is Terry's failed lie detector test. Are they admissible in court? No, of course not. But it does indicate that maybe you want to take a closer look at her. Next, well, my next problem is with Dee Dee and that whole pleading the fifth thing. I mean, sure, you have the right to do so, and the court cannot compel you to give evidence that can self-incriminate. But still, It's been my experience that an innocent person has nothing to hide. So why take the fifth? The only other thing that gives me a bit of concern when it comes to Terry is the fact that, after Kyron went missing, she didn't do anything to help with the search effort. She didn't go out looking, she didn't distribute missing posters, didn't man the phones. Nothing. When the rest of the family was doing press conferences, she was pretty much radio silent. Of course, she tried to explain it away when she was on Dr. Phil. On the show she said, and I quote, "I was advised from the beginning by law enforcement, by my husband at the time, by attorneys in the beginning, not to say anything. I've always wanted to. I've asked multiple times to speak out and have not been allowed. I kind of thought it was weird that she seemed to be the only one that was advised to shut her pie hole. Of course, there is always a chance he might still be alive. If he is, then he'd be around 22 years old right now. So I've included an age-progressed photo of Kyron that was released in 2022, and it is what he might look like now. But someone has got to know something. And if you happen to be one of those someones, then please contact the Portland Police Department at 503-823-3333. We at Night Owl want to send out our deepest sympathies to the family and friends of Kyron Horman. We hope that one day you'll get the answers you so desperately seek. But what do you think? Do you think they'll ever find Kyron? Do you even think he's still alive? What do you think happened to him? Let me know in the comments what your opinions are. And as always, if you like this video, then please hit like and subscribe. It'll really help our channel out. And remember, be you good or be you wicked, everyone deserves justice. Good night.